Hi, good morning. How's everyone? I'm continuing our conversations here as usual. Most of the questions are coming from readers of You Are the Universe, Discovering Your Cosmic Self and Why It Matters. But also, as I've mentioned, in the next 2 weeks, I'm releasing The Healing Self, a revolutionary new plan to supercharge your immune system and stay well for life. A book I've co-written with Dr. Rudy Tanzi, who's professor of neurology at Harvard University and director of genetics and aging research unit at Mass General Hospital. He was named to Time Magazine's Time 100 Most Influential People in 2015. Okay, so that's so much for the commercial. And now to a question from somebody called Nuska Kupek. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Nuska. She is from Slovenia in Europe, and she's been working for the last 9 years as a life, business, and executive coach. And she has a long letter here, but basically she's saying, why are humans so self-destructive? And is there any hope for humanity in the future? Do we really have the capacity to change? We are destroying our planet, and we are now going to explore other planets, and we'll basically destroy those planets too unless we change. So why do I choose experiences as human beings that are self-destructive? Okay, very good question. So let me do my best to answer your question. I think the first thing is, Nuska, that we are self-destructive. Human civilization has had periods throughout the ages where a few luminaries spoke about the evolution of our consciousness, spoke about human creativity, the mystery of existence, awakening to our true nature. But these luminaries were few and far between, whether they were in ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, the sages of the Upanishads, the Eastern philosophers, and some of the great philosophers of Europe, great thinkers. At the moment, philosophy is out of fashion. Science reigns supreme, and people have basically made science the arbiter of what we call reality. So we are facing a huge challenge right now, where our essential nature as humans hasn't evolved significantly since even the Bronze Age. We have tribal tendencies, and we still behave like predators. We have Bronze Age mythologies that we call religion, and we have modern capacities for destruction, huge modern capacities for destruction, nuclear weapons, biological warfare, cyber warfare now, and on and on. So there's no question that while we are also a rare species amongst all sentient beings, in that we have the capacity for self-awareness, we also have the capacity to create immense destruction. Right now, we have the capacity to destroy the world many, many, many times over. The United States has that capacity. The Russians have that capacity. Europeans have that capacity. All the countries that have nuclear weapons. And now Pakistan and India have that capacity. And of course, China has that capacity. And North Korea has the ambition to have that capacity as well. So, unfortunately, we are headed to extinction if human nature does not change. Human nature has been evolving, but very slowly. So, what to do? What to do? This is the challenge we have before us. Now, this ecosystem, the one in which we are having this conversation right now, is an ecosystem that has conscious, sentient beings, human beings, that do want to see a shift in the world. And this shift in the world can only come. I just saw a note here from Aurora Carlson, can only come if we have new leadership. But to make a very important point, whatever leaders we have right now in the world and in our own communities, the leaders themselves have their position as leaders because they represent our collective consciousness. So in many ways we cannot blame our leaders because they are localizations of our own collective consciousness. And so a new leadership will only manifest if there's a critical mass of us that take the responsibility of shifting in our own awareness, of shifting in our own consciousness. So, yes, Vyad says artificial intelligence has also increased our capacity for destruction. Totally agree with that as well. Okay, so I think we're all agreed that unless there's a shift in collective consciousness, there is not going to be a change in collective leadership. We have also all agreed that our leaders are a manifestation of our collective consciousness, and we all agreed that the only hope is for us to be actually awakening in our own awareness collectively. And for this, I once again invite you to become a member of Jiyo.com, Jiyo.com, Jiyo.com. Download the app, Jiyo, and also contribute your own story over there. There's a section called My Story, so you can contribute to your story about your desire and your progress towards the awakening of fundamental reality and who you really are. And that will certainly help our collective awakening as well. So please go to Jiyo.com and please contribute in the section called My Story. Now I'm going to come back in 15 seconds and share some ideas with you as well. So as I was watching your comments, it's very obvious to me that at least in this shared consciousness, right now that we are participating in. There's a deep desire for awakening, and there's a deep desire to change and to be the change we want to see in the world. So let me start with a few principles. Just a few principles that maybe we can all agree on. So here is the first principle that I think we can agree on. The first principle is there is existence. Simple principle. There is existence. What do we mean by that? We mean by existence that which exists. So that which exists we can interpret differently, but we can all agree that there is existence, and we are part of that existence. You and I and everything else is part of that existence, whether it's a book or a statue or a chandelier or a painting. These are all part of existence. So principle number one, there is existence. Principle number two, there is awareness of existence. Okay, so principle two, there is awareness of existence. If there was no awareness of existence, then there would be no knowing of existence. So let's agree on that. I hope everybody here agrees that there is awareness or knowing of existence. Okay. Now, third principle, if we agree on the first two principles, is as humans, or a species of consciousness that we call human beings, a name that humans have created, Homo sapiens, which means the wise ones. Let's live up to that name, the wise ones. We're not so far living up to it. But as human beings, there's a third principle that comes into play. And that principle is human beings as conscious, self-aware beings also interpret the meaning of existence. In fact, that's what every word is. If you look up the dictionary, every word has a meaning. And usually the meaning is, of course, given by other words, which is fascinating because we have to use words. But the moment you use words or symbols, then you create or give meaning to existence. And these are, as many of you are saying right now, these are human constructs that give meaning to existence. It's a human activity, and therefore it must be part of our evolution. The fact that we seek meaning and purpose. Okay, so now we have three principles. Number one, there is existence. Number two, there's awareness of existence. And the two are synonymous because without awareness of existence, and there would be no knowing of existence. And now the third principle, we interpret experience or existence through symbols. The symbols, of course, are words, but there are other symbols. People have created art and music and science. All these are symbolic representations of human constructs. In other words, the world we experience as human beings is a collective human construct. It's a collective human construct, and that human construct then evolves through many stages. The first construct is there's me, and then there's the universe. So that first human construct is that of the separate self. as we go deeper into the nature of what we call the separate self, we find it's impossible to actually find the separate self. Because everything that we call me is a result of relationship with that which we call the other. So my mind is actually part of a shared mind. No mind can exist by itself. My brain is an expression of interpersonal neurobiology, and my organism and its environment are one process. So as we go deeper into the nature of that which I call me, I end up with what Thich Nhat Hanh and many other scholars call interbeingness. I am an interbeing. We are interbeings that inter-arise in the inter-isness, which is the proliferation of existence, awareness of existence, and interpretation of existence into this experience. Second stage of awakening, that there is no isolated, separate self. In fact, the separate self is the cause of all suffering. When we experience ourselves, know ourselves as the separate self, then our inner dialogue is me and mine, and our actions are motivated by the ego identity, which is always looking to control, looking for validation, looking for approval, living in fear, and looking to be better than everybody else. So, the ego dramas are validation, control, resistance, feeling superior, feeling inferior, being afraid, trying to conquer the predator that we become. So that's the second stage now that we have, I think, at least here, beginning to understand that the separate self is a socially induced hallucination, a human construct that doesn't have any relevance if we are to shift in our awareness and awaken to reality. Okay, so then there's a third level where we go beyond the interbeingness, and that third level let's call non-duality, that there is only one reality, and it is of the nature of awareness, and that it is awareness that is modifying itself as knower, knowing, and known, as observer, observing, and observed, as seer, seeing, and scenery. In other words, everything that we call reality, whether it's a book, or a hand, or a body, or a pair of glasses, or a statue, or a painting, an item of food, everything is just a modified form of awareness. Awareness knowing itself as that particular object, and awareness knowing itself as the observer of that particular object in a modified form of itself that we call knowing. So, non-duality is the final stage for now. Awakening to the non-dual nature of existence. The awareness that modifies itself as everything that we call reality. So why is this important to Nuska's question? This is the awakening that could in fact heal the world. As I've said before, healing, wholeness, holy are the same word, and healing is the return of the memory of wholeness, which is actually the title of the next book as well, The Healing Self, the self. When we say self, what do we mean? we are familiar with phrases like Atman is Brahman, the self of the individual is the self of the universe. So awakening to self is the unification of the observer and the observed, the seer and the scenery, the lover and the beloved, me and the other, and that includes perceived enemies and those that totally disagree with us, all polarizations of the one reality experiencing itself with and as maximum diversity. So sinking into that awareness of non-dual reality automatically creates the divine attitudes of loving kindness, love, compassion, joy, equanimity, peace, and loss of the fear of death. Transcendence, emergence of Platonic qualities, truth, goodness, beauty, harmony, love, compassion, joy, equanimity, and loss of the fear of death. What we may call the religious or the spiritual peak experience. And once that becomes our internal reference point, then healing is spontaneous. Healing is natural. Healing is possible. Will we do it? I don't know. Do we have hope? Even the word hope is a very interesting word, because when you say there is hope, that means there is also despair. So hope and despair are actually part of the duality of experience. The real key here is to be independent of hope and despair both. That you have to go to that level of existence that was never born, that level of existence that is independent of hope and despair, that level of existence which is infinitely creative, that level of existence where truth is eternal as being, as awareness, and that level of existence that can see that we are all entangled at the deepest level as one being. Whether one being. This is to be grounded in sobriety. To go beyond melodrama of separation. Because all the melodrama right now, in the news, in the media, in politics, in personal relationships, in social interactions, in our interaction with the environment, in our interaction with nature, in our interaction with that which we call the cosmos, all of that is very melodramatic and very much polarized. So first understand that these ambiguities, that these contradictions, that these paradoxes all come from both the separate self and even from our collective experience of the separate self. Transcendence is the key. Going beyond melodrama. So if you have love, true love, that has to be grounded in sobriety, not in hysteria, not in I love you but you don't love me, etc., etc. You know what I'm talking about, okay? So let's first surrender to the mystery of existence. Second, let that mystery evoke in us deep humility and reverence for existence. And that reverence for existence, let that evoke in us what is love as ultimate truth with no drama. Okay? And we can do that collectively. So please share your story. Go to my story on jayo.com and start sharing your story. And let's stay in close touch with each other so we can be part of the healing if it has to occur. And if it doesn't occur, it doesn't matter. Consciousness is infinitely creative and will keep evolving till we finally wake up. Thank you. I see from your comments that at least here we are all on the same page. So thank you.